Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I am Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next hour. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds delegation-level talks with the Austrian Chancellor Karl Nehammer. Modi reiterates dialogue and diplomacy are the only way forward to find solutions in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Cooperation in various fields discussed along with India's unique role in the global south. Austrian Chancellor holds India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi for private engagement in Vienna. Click selfie with him. Prime Minister says our nations will continue working together. US President Joe Biden pledges to forcefully defend Ukraine against Russia at the NATO summit in Washington. New commitments of military aid to Ukraine announced. And Spain beat France to reach Euro 2024 final to face the winner of the match between England versus the Netherlands. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi was accorded a ceremonial reception with the national anthems of India and Austria played at the Federal Chancellery in Vienna, Austria on Wednesday. The Prime Minister was accorded this welcome in the presence of Austrian Chancellor Karl Nehammer. India's Prime Minister also signed a guest book at the Federal Chancellery then. Prime Minister Modi is the first Indian leader to visit Austria in over 4 decades as the two countries celebrate 75 years of diplomatic relations this year. The leaders also held delegation-level talks at the Federal Chancellery in Vienna. Several regional issues and political and economic discussions were held between the leaders. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, Foreign Secretary Vinay Mohan Kwatra and other officials were present in the meeting. So India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi held delegation-level talks with the Chancellor Karl Nehammer in a short while, just a short while ago, and what was reiterated in the press statements made that India and Austria both reiterate peaceful solutions to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Earlier, Austrian Chancellor Karl Nehammer hosted Prime Minister Narendra Modi in a private engagement on Tuesday. This was the first meeting between the two leaders. The Austrian Chancellor posted a photo of him and Prime Minister Modi on the social media platform X and wrote, "It's an honor to welcome Prime Minister Modi to Austria. Austria and India are friends and partners." Nehammer further wrote that he looks forward to the political and economic discussions between the two nations during Prime Minister Modi's visit. Prime Minister Modi thanked the Austrian Chancellor for the warm welcome and said that he looked forward to the discussions as well. Prime Minister Modi said that our nations will continue working together to further global good. Austrian Ambassador to India, Katharina Wieser, spoke about the first visit of an Indian Prime Minister in over 40 years, with this year also marking 75 years of the bilateral relations between India and Austria.
This is really a very important visit for us. It is the first visit of an Indian Prime Minister, as you mentioned, after 41 years to Austria, 40 years after an Austrian Federal Chancellor visited India. And this visit is taking place in a year when we are celebrating 75 years of bilateral relations. So we are happy about that fact also, that this high-level visit is now sort of a manifestation of the very good place that we are in at the level of our bilateral relations.
The ambassador also mentioned about the economic relations of both the countries, highlighting that it is the most important part of the bilateral relationship.
Our bilateral economic and business relationship is a very important central part of our bilateral relationship. We have been improving that also over the past years. There's more interest, not only from Austrian companies, but also from other companies. There's a more international focus and interest also in what is happening in India. And also from Austrian company side, obviously, we have 150 Austrian, so subsidiaries of Austrian companies in India.
Now let's take a look at the glorious history of India-Austria relations and how they have transformed over the years. India and Austria established diplomatic relations on November 10, 1949, marking the beginning of a strong and friendly partnership between the two nations. India and Austria have a thriving trade relationship with bilateral trade standing at $2.93 billion US dollars, I beg your pardon. This was in the year 2023-24, comprising Indian exports worth around $1.52 billion US dollars and imports worth $1.41 billion US dollars. India has invested over $1 billion US dollars in Austria, while Austria has invested over $800 million US dollars in India, showcasing the strong economic ties between the two countries. There are vast opportunities for cooperation in infrastructure, renewable energy, e-commerce, fintech, startups, and tech hubs between India and Austria. In a significant development, India and Austria signed a comprehensive migration and mobility agreement in May 2023 to enhance the flow of students, academics, researchers, and professionals between the two nations. Balthasar Springer, an Austrian traveller, visited India as far back as 1505, marking one of the earliest recorded interactions between the two nations. The teaching of Sanskrit at Vienna University dates back to 1845, reflecting Austria's long-standing interest in Indian culture and language. Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore visited Vienna in 1921 and 1926, strengthening cultural ties between India and Austria. So India and Austria have had a rich cultural exchange with renowned Indian artists like Ustad Amjad Ali Khan, Zakir Hussain, Pandit Hari Prasad Chaurasia, Pandit Vishwamohan Bhatt, Anushka Shankar and Maestro Zubin Mehta performing in Austria. Today, there are over 31,000 Indians living in Austria, contributing to the strong people-to-people ties between the two countries. So the Indian Prime Minister's visit to Austria is a much awaited one because the last such prime ministerial visit to this key European nation took place more than 4 decades ago. India already has a special place in the hearts of many Austrians and other nationalities who've made it their home over the years, including the Indian diaspora. DD India's Gautam Roy tells you why in our next report.
Be it yoga, Ayurveda or traditional art and culture like Bharatanatyam, India has had a special place due to its soft power in distant lands for centuries. Radha Anjali, her given name by her Indian guru, is of Austrian parentage, married to an Iranian and running a Bharatanatyam school, Natya Mandir, in Austria's capital Vienna since the 80s. She says, as India has been gaining global prominence in recent years, interest in its art, culture and traditions has also been growing.
Performed almost all over Europe and in India, and well, I'm dancing the last maybe 45 years. Many years before, Indian culture was very much unknown, and during the last 10-20 years it is much more prominent.
Radha Anjali's students in Vienna come from different parts of the world as they are drawn to India's mesmerizing dance forms and classical music, apart from those with Indian origins looking to remain connected with their roots.
Born in India, in Rajasthan actually, and just so we were quite disconnected from our culture originally, and it's a very good way to reconnect and to actually know more in detail what's the Indian culture all about.
I was always mesmerized by it, and I also grew up watching Bollywood and dance videos when I was in Bangladesh and also here, so it kind of was in me to like these kind of dances.
I did yoga, a lot of yoga. I did my study in yoga at yoga teacher, and I were in Indian. And it was for me completely wow. Bharatanatyam.
I did Bharatanatyam a bit when I was a child in Sri Lanka, and I took a break due to a number of reasons. And after coming to Vienna, I wanted to get back to dancing. I was doing a bit of African dancing, but I felt that I needed to get back to Bharatanatyam. It just feels more connected.
As India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi visits Austria, it's only natural for all things Indian to figure even more prominently in the host country, leading to more awareness, interactions and proximities between the two cultures and people. India has always had deep wells of art, culture and traditional knowledge to draw from for any individual from any part of the world. But with rising consciousness about India, its economic prowess or even the capabilities of its individuals, there are imprints of India now all over the world, and Austria is no stranger to it. With camera person Pramod Negi, Gautam Roy in Vienna for DD India.
Earlier, Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a grand welcome in Austria with the Indian diaspora chanting a rendition of Vande Mataram for his welcome, praising the country's vibrant musical culture. Prime Minister Modi tweeted on X, and I quote him, "Austria is known for its vibrant musical culture. I got a glimpse of it thanks to this amazing rendition of Vande Mataram." So this Austrian choir and orchestra consisting of 50 members was conducted by Vijay Upadhyay, the Indian conductor, and he's the director of the Department of Music at the University of Vienna. Vibrant musical culture of Vienna there. You're watching DD India News coming up on the show. NATO chief urges leaders of the Transatlantic Security Alliance to maintain support for Ukraine in its conflict against Russia. Ukraine can and will stop Vladimir Putin. Joe Biden tells NATO members in a forceful speech in Washington. And NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg announces important decisions on Ukraine during the ongoing summit. All that and more on the other side.
As India keeps getting hotter and hotter, people will be looking for innovations to help combat the impacts of climate change and to cut the emissions that are causing it.
Zero tillage wheat, it builds soil carbon. It removes carbon dioxide from the air and builds soil carbon. It's like planting a tree underground.
What's happening here is preservation through conversion and transformation. I think you can see that very well here. You can take good experiences from it, and those are transferable.
Perovskite over silicon as material is the ease of processing. Silicon is something that is relatively energy intensive to fabricate, but this is something that can be done at close to room temperatures.
Welcome Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. Let's now take a look at stories making news around the world. Severe rainfall in Chongqing, China caused widespread flooding, landslides and business disruptions on Wednesday. Over 450 locals were displaced in the neighbouring Kaichau district due to rising water levels from the Nan and Puli rivers. China's Central Meteorological Bureau has issued yellow flood alerts. Russia's lower house of parliament approved tax increases proposed by the finance ministry targeting corporations and the wealthy. The new measures, including higher income tax rates and increased corporation tax, are expected to generate an additional $30 billion in revenue for the next year's budget, enabling Moscow to boost spending and fund its military operations in Ukraine without compromising fiscal stability. A massive fire engulfed a factory in West Melbourne, Australia, following a chemical explosion on Wednesday. A large smoke plume was seen rising above nearby houses. Emergency services dispatched over 180 firefighters and 66 vehicles to the scene, closing several roads and evacuating nearby factories. Heavy rainfall in South Korea's central region caused flooding and property damage and disruptions to bullet train services. At least one person has died due to a collapsed wall, and there are reports of significant damage to infrastructure and roads as well. Coming to the other top story of the day, world leaders have gathered in Washington for the NATO summit as the organization is celebrating its 75th anniversary this year. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer arrived in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, marking his inaugural appearance at a global summit since taking office. Prior to his departure, Starmer pledged to honour his campaign promise to boost UK defence spending to 2.5% of the GDP, but emphasised that this increase would only occur when fiscally feasible. NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg urged leaders of the Transatlantic Security Alliance to maintain support for Ukraine in its war against Russia, declaring that the outcome of the conflict would shape global security for decades. Now, the US and its allies will deliver 5 additional air defense systems to Kiev, affirming their full support for Ukraine. The announcement came from the US President Joe Biden while awarding NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg with the US's highest honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Nearly 24 allied partners have signed the bilateral security agreements with Ukraine, and more countries will follow. Today, I'm announcing the historic donation of air defense equipment for Ukraine. The United States, Germany, the Netherlands, Romania, and Italy will provide Ukraine with the equipment for 5 additional strategic air defense systems. And in the coming months, the United States and our partners intend to provide Ukraine with dozens of additional tactical air defense systems.
NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg announced to have placed an order for Stinger anti-aircraft missiles worth almost $700 million in the name of several member states on Tuesday. Stoltenberg was addressing a gathering of defense industry leaders on the sidelines of the NATO summit in Washington. The last contract for Stinger missiles was awarded in May 2022 when the US Army contracted $625 million worth of anti-aircraft missiles to replenish stocks sent to Kiev, as it is in hot demand in Ukraine, where they have used it in their fight against Russia. The NATO order for Stingers will keep the production line running through 2029.
Last year, the NSPA, the Support and Procurement Agency, agreed contracts worth over $11 billion for ammunition and capabilities. And just today, the NSPA signed new multinational contracts for Stinger missiles worth almost $700 million.
Further, US President Joe Biden has forcefully pledged to defend Ukraine against Russia at the NATO summit. In a forceful speech in Washington on Tuesday, he used the global stage to try to show allies at home and abroad that he can still lead. Biden has endured 12 days of withering questions about his fitness for office, as some of his fellow Democrats on Capitol Hill and campaign donors fear that he will lose the November 5th election after a halting debate performance on June 27th. The grinding Ukraine-Russia conflict is going to dominate private conversations between the leaders of the 32 NATO member countries. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg appeared with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and announced that there will be some decisions on Ukraine during the summit. Members have a full agenda focused on military and financial aid for Ukraine and offering some pathway towards eventual NATO membership for Ukraine.
We have NATO coming together for its 75th anniversary here in Washington. Of course, celebrating those 75 years, but more important, focused on today and the following days and making sure that our alliance continues to do what it's done so successfully for 75 years, which is to ensure the defense of its members. Thanks to the Secretary General and his leadership, we have an alliance that is stronger, that is larger, and that is more fit for purpose than it's been, and ready to take on the challenges of this moment.
This summit will be a summit where we celebrate the most successful alliance in history, but we're also going to make important decisions for the future on deterrence and defense, on Ukraine, on partnerships in the Asia-Pacific. And of course, none of this would have been possible without the leadership of the United States, of President Biden, of you, to ensure that we have now 32 allies agreeing on all these important decisions we will take during the summit here in Washington. We will make decisions on Ukraine, and I think what we have seen over the last days demonstrates the need to step up our support for Ukraine.
Meanwhile, bilateral meetings between US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba led to the renewed support for Ukraine. Both the leaders met at the State Department during the three-day NATO summit in Washington, D.C.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is, as always, a great pleasure to have my colleague, my friend Dmytro Kuleba here as we start the NATO summit, a summit that will further strengthen Ukraine's ties to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and its path to membership. We've done a lot of work in recent weeks and recent months on that, and I think you'll see a very strong package emerge from this summit for Ukraine. More broadly, we've been working closely together to make sure that as things move forward, Ukraine has what it needs to stand strongly on its own feet, militarily, economically, democratically. And we're on a very good pathway to do just that.
On NATO, we seem to be set before a very, very important gathering of leaders. Thank you for working diligently on covering, on reaching some of very important agreements on air defense and for the assistance that NATO will be providing to Ukraine. This is all essential. And I'm looking forward to continuing our partnership and friendship and cooperation.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky urged the United States political leaders in Washington not to wait for the outcome of America's November presidential election to move forcefully to aid his country against Russia. And now let's head back to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Austria, where he is currently touring the city. Let's go live. So this is the India-Austria business meeting currently on in Vienna. We see Prime Minister Narendra Modi leading the delegation from the Indian side and Chancellor Karl Nehammer leading the Viennese delegation. What we've seen through the day are bilateral engagements between the two sides. There were brief press statements prior to this, and cooperation in various fields was discussed, namely investment, economic engagements, infrastructure development, innovation, renewable energy, hydrogen, water and waste management, artificial intelligence and quantum computing. So right now, India-Austria business meeting currently on in Vienna. What is also expected in the day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India is expected to call on the President of Austria, Alexander Van der Bellen. These are visuals coming live from Vienna. This is the India-Austria business meeting. So different agreements are expected to be signed, and we are now joined by our correspondent Arun Sharma on the line. Arun, if you could sum up what have these bilateral engagements centered upon, which areas in particular?
Good afternoon, Tanvi. Well, the focus of this India-Austria, business forum is to engage with the business community and the top CEOs of both the countries, that is India and Austria. And, we have seen that how, Austria on one side is looking forward to explore opportunities in, in a big market like India, where it gets an access to big market. So on the other side, India is looking forward to exploring various sectors like critical technologies and new end technologies that Austria has already an expertise in. Now, India, for its inclusive development, is looking forward to exploring ways. So how can best practices in sectors like solar, in urban mobility, in water and waste management. So these are some of the key areas, that India is looking forward to, the expertise, and of course the global collaboration, and of course Austria's expertise in these kind of sectors that includes urban mobility, water and waste management, and of course various other critical technologies. That also includes the AI, that is artificial intelligence, and semiconductors. So how can both countries contribute or collaborate? That is going to be the focus area. Also, India is aggressively moving ahead in the direction of Make in India, as to how can India become a global supply chain or play an important role as far as the global supply chains are concerned in various sectors. That includes the semiconductors, that includes the solar panels, and of course various critical technologies. So in that direction, collaboration with Austria is going to play an important role. So on the other side, Austria is also looking for a big market, because we know this fact that the entire Europe is suffering from the financial instability and the liquidity crunch and the slowdown as well. So in that context, Austria and of course the Europe is primarily looking forward to explore big markets, and India in that direction plays an important role as a big market. So yes, both the the business tycoons and the conglomerates of both India and Austria will interact and of course go ahead for various investment commitments in both the countries. So it's a win-win situation for both India and Austria as far as the business and investments are concerned.
Okay, Arun, in the economic sphere, India's focus was expected to be in areas like investment opportunities, mutually beneficial trade and sustainable development. If you could shed some more light on these areas and what was discussed in these talks.
So absolutely, Tanvi, as I mentioned, and even the Prime Minister, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi during his press statement also highlighted this point that now relation between India and Austria are not going to be limited only to economic aspect, trade and investment. They're going to give a new tone to the strategic point of view as well, because various critical technologies also require the strategic aspect as well. And in that context, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has made this big statement. Also, when we talk about the delegation level talks and the press statement after that, Prime Minister Modi has clearly highlighted in his press statement about the terrorism, because we have seen that how entire Europe, in various pockets, we have seen how terrorism activities are increasing. And in that context, both India and Austria have condemned the terrorism in all the forms. And last but not the least, on the Ukraine aspect as well, Tanvi. Now, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and of course the Austrian Chancellor in their press statement clearly mentioned this point that both the sides have discussed about the Ukraine crisis. And of course, Prime Minister Modi has clearly highlighted once again that the solutions cannot be found in the battlefield. And this is no time for war, of course, as we all know that Prime Minister Narendra Modi earlier also highlighted this point that this is no time for war, and solutions cannot be found on the battlefield, and we have to find options via dialogue and diplomacy. So, these are some of the big takeaways as far as the press statements of Indian Prime Minister is concerned, whereby on one side he highlighted that how India and Austria will be collaborating in sectors like science and tech, AI, and of course various other critical technologies that also apart from that, the urban mobility, the smart mobility, these are some of the main domains, including the water management and the waste management. And apart from that, how can strategic angle can be given as far as India-Austria relation is concerned. And last but not least, on the Ukraine crisis, because that is the dominating point as far as the globe is concerned, because the entire West is closely observing the visit of Indian Prime Minister Modi to Russia, and of course in his second leg to Austria. So yes, on the Ukraine front, Prime Minister Modi again clearly highlighting this point that the battlefields have no solutions as far as various problems are concerned, and dialogue and diplomacy only serve the purpose, and they only gave us the solution. So in that context, the visit of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, giving new dimensions to the India-Austria relationship. And of course, now today the last event. Or the big event, you can say, that will be of the Indian Diaspora Connect, whereby we have seen that the focus will be on connecting with the Indian diaspora, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be engaging with the community event later in the day today.
Yes, we all look forward to that Indian community event later in the day. Very quickly, Arun, how do you see the special gesture of the Austrian choir playing the rendition of Vande Mataram there? Yes, we saw Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeting about it. What do you have to say to that?
So I just want to say to this, Tanvi, that the Indian culture is getting the global recognition. And when we talk about Austria, the films, the cultural artists of India are very much popular here in Austria. And, Mr. Upadhyay, who led this delegation of playing in front of Indian Prime Minister, he basically told us that, how they have practiced the Indian music. And of course, amongst the Austrian people also, the Indian music, the cultural aspect of India is also famous. So, of course, this gives you goosebumps when these kinds of renditions are played, globally. And the Austrian people from Europe are playing these kind of rendition. And this gives a clear perspective that how India's soft power is increasing on the global platform. Earlier also, we have seen that how people are performing yoga, and we know this fact that it is because of Indian Prime Minister Modi's leadership role at the UN. He proposed this idea of observing the Yoga Day, and today the entire world is observing the Yoga Day. They celebrate this day, and gradually we are witnessing that how India's soft power, India's culture, India's cuisine is getting a global recognition, not only in Europe but all across the world. And we have seen that how approval rating of Indian Prime Minister, that is more than the various European leaders as well. So this also gives a clear message that Prime Minister Modi is also very much popular in Europe as well. People look forward to, because yesterday when Prime Minister Modi and Austrian Chancellor were on the streets, and they took selfies yesterday night. So there were people, youngsters, they were looking forward to.
Yes, okay. Arun Sharma reporting from Vienna.
So
yes, please go on. We can hear you now.
Yes, absolutely. So this shows that how India's, globally recognition of India is increasing going forward.
All right, we leave it here. Thank you very much, Arun Sharma, reporting for us from Vienna on Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Austria. So during the joint press statement a while ago, Prime Minister Modi said that ties between India and Austria will be given a strategic direction. Listen in.
हमने निर्णय लिया है कि संबंधों को स्ट्रैटेजिक दिशा प्रदान की जाएगी। आने वाले दशक के लिए सहयोग का खाका तैयार किया गया है। यह केवल आर्थिक सहयोग और निवेश तक सीमित नहीं है। इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर विकास, इनोवेशन, रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी, हाइड्रोजन, water and waste management, आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, क्वांटम जैसे क्षेत्रों में एक दूसरे के सामर्थ्य को जोड़ने का काम किया जाएगा। दोनों देशों की युवा शक्ति और आइडियाज को कनेक्ट करने के लिए स्टार्टअप ब्रिज को गति दी जाएगी। मोबिलिटी और माइग्रेशन पार्टनरशिप पर पहले से समझौता हुआ है। यह लीगल माइग्रेशन और स्किल्ड वर्कफोर्स की मूवमेंट में सहयोग देगा। सांस्कृतिक और शैक्षणिक संस्थाओं के बीच आदान प्रदान को बढ़ावा दिया जाएगा।
So staying in Europe and talking of India's soft power, hundreds of moviegoers have been packing theatres in Germany to enjoy a little taste of India. The annual Indo-German Film Week showcasing the best of Bollywood on the silver screen, with many in the Indian diaspora taking along German friends to introduce them to the magic of Indian cinema. From Berlin, Trent Murray has the story.
In the Babylon Cinema Berlin, a big burst of Bollywood. This is the annual Indo-German Film Week, a celebration of Indian cinema and culture. For Indians living in Germany, the festival gives a chance to showcase what makes Bollywood special to their European friends.
It's more about the storytelling, it's more about the happiness and, the unity in culture. Like, we are, different part of India has so much in the cultural difference, but still, it's still very unique, and how we all are connected despite of different languages, and we have different folk style. So they come to know that it's not just the sari, which is a dressing style, or not just, the Punjabi dance, but there are so many forms of dances.
It's about their music, it's about their songs, it's about their costume. It's about their emotions, because India is a sentimental country. It's a little emotional, and their emotions are all about love, care, affection. So that's my kind of vision, my kind of perspective for it. So yeah, that's what I tell them. It's a mixture of life.
Well, India has well and truly established itself as one of the powerhouses of global cinema, producing well over 1,500 feature films every year. Increasingly, Bollywood's success on the silver screen is coming from a surging interest amongst international audiences.
This is now the 12th year in a row the Film Week has been held. Festival organiser Stephen Ottenbuch says looking beyond the big-name titles is what keeps crowds coming back.
We now try to concentrate on alternative films, like premieres, which are from artists and regional films, from Marathi cinema, from Gujarati cinema, from Malayalam cinema. And that's how we always create the mix for the festival.
Over 10 days, crowds across the capital can immerse themselves in the magic of India, with more than 30 films being shown on the big screen. Enjoying the sights and sounds of the subcontinent, right here in the heart of Germany's biggest city. Trent Murray for DD India, Berlin.
Many thanks to Pooja Rangararan.
Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. As the Union Budget 2024-25 approaches, micro, small and medium enterprises or MSMEs of India are hopeful for significant relief. And India to lock horns with Zimbabwe in the 30-20 international cricket match in Harare today. And in Euro 2024, the Netherlands are up against England in the second Euro semi-final in Dortmund.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
You're watching DD India News. I am Tanvi Taneja. As the Union Budget 2024-25 approaches, India's micro, small and medium enterprises or MSMEs are hopeful for significant relief. They are seeking some relaxation in taxes, streamlined GST, that's goods and services tax processes, and overall improvements in ease of doing business. This is crucial for the sector, which encompasses 63 million registered enterprises. A report.
The MSME sector accounts for 30% of the country's gross domestic product or GDP. It's the second largest employer after agriculture. The share of exports from products specified for MSMEs constitute 45.5% of the country's total exports. The government can play a pivotal role in driving technology adoption across MSMEs by providing financial incentives, framing supporting policies, and setting up an R&D fund for MSMEs.
Our goal is that the value addition today, which is at about 18 to 20%, doubles to about 35 to 40% in the next 5 years, and we are able to take forward the component manufacturing ecosystem, and there the role of MSMEs is going to be really significant.
There are three key challenges constraining sustainable growth in the MSME sector: get paid, get capital, and get digital.
By using digital tools, MSMEs can gain access to much wider markets and supply chains and get discovered by millions of consumers in India and the globe.
India's MSME network, currently housing 633.9 lakh enterprises, hold immense potential to drive India's mission of becoming the third largest global economy by 2027 and achieving Viksit Bharat by 2047. MSMEs have emerged as the backbone of India's economy and are playing a critical role in propelling innovation across the country. Bureau Report, DD India.
The benchmark equity indices in India erased the previous session's gains and ended in red today. The Sensex at the BSE declined 427 points or 0.5% to trade at 79,924, and the Nifty 50 lost 109 points or 0.5% to trade at 24,324 a short while ago. The Indian rupee opened on a low on Wednesday. The Indian rupee depreciated by 1 paise to open at 83.5 against the US dollar. The Indian rupee was trading at 83,477 rupees against the US dollar as per latest updates. Asian stocks today circled near 2-year highs on Wednesday on growing bets of imminent US rate cuts, while the New Zealand dollar slid after its central bank signalled greater confidence that inflation was coming to heel. The Reserve Bank of New Zealand held its crash rate steady at 5.5% on Wednesday as expected, but noted that inflation was expected to return to its target range of 1 to 3% in the second half of the year. Meanwhile, Japan's Nikkei share average rose to an intraday peak in a choppy session on Wednesday as financial shares outperformed and investors snapped up stocks to get in on the latest rally. The market broadened toward the end of trading to spur the Nikkei 225 index to a record high of 41,889 points. The benchmark index closed up 0.6% at an all-time closing high of 41,832, while the broader topics finished 0.5% higher at a record closing peak of 2,909. You're watching DD India News. Time now for some sporting action. First from Euro 2024. Spain struck twice in 5 minutes in a pulsating first half to secure a 2-1 win over France in the Euro semi-finals. The record-breaking goal from teenager Lamine Yamal and a Dani Olmo effort propelled them to the final. The 16-year-old Yamal scored with a sublime shot in the 21st minute to become the youngest scorer in a Euro or World Cup before Olmo added another in the 25th. They will now face the winners of Wednesday's match between England and the Netherlands in the final in Berlin on Sunday. So, the Netherlands are up against England in the second Euro semi-final in Dortmund today. England have limped into the last four with tepid performances against opponents they should have beaten easily, while the Netherlands were 20 minutes from elimination before their quarter-final fight back against Turkey. The Netherlands have the edge in attack. They have scored 9 goals at Euro, coming from 20 attempts on target against 15 by an English side. England's shootout win over Switzerland brought momentary euphoria, but it was more relief than redemption, and the semi-final match may require a transformation in attack for them to reach their third major tournament final. And in Wimbledon, defending champion Carlos Alcaraz returned to the semi-finals with an enthralling comeback on Tuesday. Having taken his Grand Slam rally to 3 at the French Open last month, Alcaraz pushed on in his quest to retain a major trophy for the first time and cement his big league status by rallying past American Tommy Paul 5-7, 6-4, 6-2, 6-2. Jannik Sinner was heavily backed to succeed at the grass court Grand Slam, but the ailing 22-year-old came crashing down to earth against 5th seed Daniil Medvedev. Sinner put up a brave fight after the timeout due to illness, but the Italian was unable to prevent a 6-7, 6-4, 7-6, 2-6, 6-3 defeat. Jasmine Paoloni cruised to a 6-2, 6-1 victory at Wimbledon to set up a meeting with Croatian Dona Vekic, who ended the extraordinary run of qualifier Lulu Sun. Vekic had serious doubts about the durability of her knee after surgery in 2021 and considered quitting, but she now finds herself in a maiden semi-final on the grandest stage. And talking of cricket, India will aim to take lead in the series when they lock horns with Zimbabwe in the third T20 match in Harare today. Recovering from a shock 13-run defeat in the opening game, India responded with a thumping 100-run win over the hosts in the second match. The win helped India level the series 1-1. India are likely to ring in some changes in the playing 11 as the World Cup winning trio of Yashasvi Jaiswal, Sanju Samson and Shivam Dubey have joined the squad. The young Indian team will now look to continue the winning momentum and emerge victorious in the remaining matches to seal the series on away soil. The last 2 T20s will be played on July 13th and 14th. And former India opener Gautam Gambhir has been appointed as the head coach of the country's cricket team after Rahul Dravid. He succeeded former teammate Rahul Dravid in what is considered one of the most challenging jobs of the game. Dravid, who ended his tenure guiding India to the T20 World Cup victory last month, opted not to apply for the job again, paving the way for Gambhir's elevation to the role. Gambhir was part of India's sides that won the T20 World Cup in 2007 and the 50 overs title 4 years later. So with that, we wind up this edition of DD India News Hour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And for those on the go, you can catch all the latest news and updates on our DD India mobile app. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.